Welcome to Campfire Wisdom. Grab a seat around the fire and tell us your story.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Campfire Wisdom. I'm actually in my hometown right now, sitting in my old bedroom with my dad, and you have converted this into your photo laboratory, so to speak.
My laboratory.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's actually the vertical blinds that you used to have, the same carpeting you used to have, the same paneling, but I put in some kitchen cabinets and some leftover counter pieces, and it's my computer studio for my photography work and printing.
And I guess this is where you can go to escape the madness of the house if you need to. It's your sanctuary.
It is. It's just my little black hole of, avoidance and procrastination. Yeah, I can, and then, the same big window doors that look out on the pool area and the Santa Catalina Mountains and the orange tree, which has been here for 38 plus years since we bought the house. I can bring a little bit of the outside world in.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember this was a nice little thing to have in high school because I could sneak in and out without being detected. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then I made this bench out of, this was the backboard on the queen size bed that I bought for Ross.
Oh, yeah.
And this was where you hid the extra pillows and blankets, and what I did was I turned it on its side.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Got 4 legs for it. And then our old computer desk that we used to have our original Mac on.
Yeah, that's true.
This fit in. And then right next to, over here at the shelving unit we put in for you when you use this as a bedroom.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we converted part of that shelving unit into your iguana habitat. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I could still see the screws right there for the lid. Remember the lid would fold down.
Yeah, and the holes are still drilled in the side here,
Vents.
Yeah, the vents
So
for
I forgot that we put him in there.
Yeah,
Crazy.
That was when he was little.
That's when he was little.
And then I didn't have the lateral file done, and we didn't have the wine refrigerator. And in that corner, when he grew bigger, no, that was by the time you had your second iguana, right?
Yeah, I had 2 at that time.
Yeah.
We built a little corner.
A little diagonal
slab. You can actually still see the pencil marking on the side where we...
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was a double-tiered, and it had a piece of driftwood or old dried-out limb in there where he could hang himself up and...
And remember that went through it was 2-tier.
It was 2-tier.
On the bottom or the top.
It was a limb that went right through, yeah. And then there was a ventilated plexiglass front, and then there was a little bit of a light in there.
Yeah, I do remember
so
that.
you get a sunlight effect. So how many people do you know, beside yourself, that had not 1 but 2 pet iguanas in the bedroom with them?
Yeah, I know. Not that many people. It's funny. I joke around with people because they're like, "Oh my God, this person has an iguana," and I'm like, "I had iguanas, and they're kind of an exotic pet, but at the same time, that's when I started to get busy in life. And if you don't spend a lot of time with them, they forget who you are, so they don't want to be held. And remember, that big one would whip you pretty good if you try to put your hand in there."
I remember the one that you had, that you sat on your lap with you watching TV in the TV room.
Yeah.
And he'd have his mouth ajar while you scratched his head looking at the TV. It was weird. It was like, baby brother, reptilian baby brother sitting on your lap.
That was just a weird phase. I don't know why. I don't know what got me into that. And that's bizarre.
A lesson to be learned. What do we have to do with iguanas that we discovered?
You have to supplement them with calcium.
Calcium carbonate with calcium, and we use calcium carbonate in not mint flavored but clear Tums. And you used to get a little nutmeg scraper.
Yeah, you're right.
And you'd scrape the Tums on top of
the lettuce.
The lettuce, yeah.
Have you listened to our? I'm not trying to bust you or anything. You've been listening to our show, the podcast?
I have not been listening to the podcast. I'm, at my age, I'm really scraping and struggling to claw my way up to the technology level that you are, and I'm never going to achieve that. But you're keeping me in the loop if I don't wear you down too much with my same questions over and over again. Yeah, podcasts is. I have a website, thanks to Greg, that he helped me put together. I'm on Facebook. I have a presence on Instagram, but that's about where it is because that's about all I can deal with and manage.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, we were like, I know I kind of am cornering you in a way because I was like, hey, by the way, I want to sit down and interview you.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. But kind of what we've been talking a lot about is just like, obviously camping and the joy that you get from being outside and just having that simpler way of being when you are camping. You know, like there's less to think about. You don't have to worry about cleaning this and doing that. You're just outdoors. You have a fire, and all you really have to do is go to sleep and wake up the next day. You know, so it's kind of like a throwback to simpler times when like our tribal ancestors just gathered around a fire and they had much more in common than we do right now. You know. So, and I've shared my journey a lot with the people that have been listening about like being a father and whatnot. And for those of you who don't know, I'm in Tucson today, and last night we had a sex release party, sex release. That sounds a little. We had a sex reveal party, so. It wasn't a gender reveal because my girl is an adamant feminist, and at the same time she is a nurse, so she's very particular about we're discovering biological sex, not gender, because gender is obviously a loose-based topic and something that will be even more of a topic of conversation in the future here. But we found out yesterday that we are having a boy, and pretty excited about that. So we are in August going to welcome Otto Paul Stutzy, so named obviously after you, because I love you and my dad, and you taught me a lot. And I would say that like my passion for being outdoors and trying to, you know, live a simpler life obviously comes from your roots. So I thank you for instilling that in us and getting us involved in Scouts. And I remember even just, what's that? Well, remember
you can edit this, right?
Yes, I can edit this.
Well, you're loving what you're doing, and I appreciate the heart and soul you're putting into it. But if you want to interview me, I don't have much time left, son. You got to ask me a question and shut up.
Oh. Well, no, I'm setting the stage because I just want you to know like all the stuff we've been talking about, so you know contextually what. Yeah, I'm not asking you to like pontificate or anything, but just.
No, but I'm itching to go. I mean, you've got me.
All right, you're raring. Okay,
so I don't even know what you're going to ask me, but I get the scene, man. I get the scene.
All right, you're with me. You smell what I'm stepping in.
Yeah.
Okay, so for once,
it happens. It happens. You know?
Okay, so you're saying I'm talking more than I should.
No, you're talking more than I am, and that scares me.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I would say like for you, like what about like being a dad and whatnot? What it encouraged you to want to like make sure that we were, you know, experiencing outdoors and stuff like that? Like what's important about that for you?
I got it from my dad and my mom. My dad probably more than my mom. My mom was a great teacher in many ways, but the one that loved nature and just going for walks and being around the greenery and open places was my dad and my mom. We didn't have a car. Neither of my parents ever drove. We lived in the city. We're urban dwellers, and for us, the park along Chicago, Lake Michigan shoreline, that was our outdoors. We didn't go camping there. You couldn't do that. But every once in a while, a friend would take us out to some of the surrounding lake areas and Fox River Grove and Algonquin, and my dad reveled in being out in the greenery, you know, and what was suburban. It wasn't even suburbia. I mean, it was semi-wilderness at that time. There were people living out in farmland, and he relished that. As a city dweller back in the old country, he was the second son of 5 that lived, and his responsibility was cultivating the garden plot that was in the middle of the city of Berlin, Germany. That was allotted to each family. And he believed in a sound mind and a sound body, and he believed in exercise and gymnastics and track and field. And through the organization that he was a member of, he ended up going out to the lake country all around Berlin, the city of Berlin. So when he came to this country, you know, it was more of the same. And after I got married and moved to Wisconsin, Wisconsin was definitely more rural than the urban environment of Chicago. And then when after you and your brother were born, or I should say your brother and then you, since you're the second.
That's true.
We moved out to South Dakota and you heard your first coyote and saw your pronghorn antelope running along the highway, and the nearest interstate was 35 miles away. We got a taste of wilderness. You remember when we used to go camping in our 8x10 tent without a bottom, without a floor, along the Missouri River by Farm Island. And then later on, we got a tent camper, and man, we were really ripping along and doing great stuff. And
I loved it. It was a Starcraft. Right?
Yeah, it was a used Starcraft.
Yeah.
And I bought it from a banker in a nearby town of Hughes.
Okay. That's South Dakota?
South Dakota.
Okay.
And he had 2 campers, and he bought himself a newer, bigger one. And he had 3 boats. He had 3 size aluminum fishing boats for the river, depending on how deep the water or how far he had to travel up the river. And they were all Lund boats.
Wow.
And that motivated me to get a Lund boat later on with my colleague from work. But when we moved out to Arizona is when we really cut loose, because there you were just 45 minutes away from wilderness or less. I mean, you go out to Reddington Pass, and you hang around long enough, you're going to see cougars, bobcats, you name it. Probably deer are more elusive, but there's so many things that are around there that you can't even see.
Yeah, true.
And hiking and wandering and Seven Falls, Sabino Canyon. There's so much to do out in the USA Southwest, and so we had some wonderful times here. And it's also less expensive, and you're lucky that you had a mom that went along with that kind of stuff. Roughing it was not out of the realm of possibility for her.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of got started. And then, of course, being a photo enthusiast since I was 16, I look at the world a little bit differently. I see a lot of beauty in creation, and still do. And in our crazy times, it's a blessing to be able to go and be by yourself and think a little bit, slow down, and look around you and say, yes, the world is wonderful, even though everything else seems like craziness.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's funny. Do you remember, like, that one time? I told the story about it on a previous episode, but we went hunting. It was me, you, and Adam and Gib. Remember that? So, and then Adam and his dad. I was
such a big hunter, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember that was because we only went hunting. I think I went hunting with you twice, right? Does that sound right? And then I think after that we just didn't hunt, and I think that was when Adam and his dad split up, and we split up, and it seemed like, I don't know if you remember this correctly, but
is it with the deer where the deer and I were to go around the rock at 180 degrees from one another? And they were watching and laughing across the valley at us and told us about it later on?
That was one.
Okay.
That was one. Actually, no, that was a totally different story. It was the one where it seemed like the does were like protecting the buck, like you couldn't get a shot off.
Yeah.
Remember that? Like, am I remembering that correctly?
I don't. You got a better memory than I do, because I don't remember that incident, because I might have had buck fever in that incident. No, I really wouldn't have, because I was not much of a hunter. I only got into hunting because I moved down here, and my neighbor Gib, who is still my friend and my attorney, took a liking to me and blessed me for moving in the neighborhood, because he had 3 boys and I had 4. Well, at that time only 3. But he got me into hunting because I was out there with a camera, and we were hunting, and he had the gun and I had the camera, and I was going to do nature photography and wildlife and animal behavior. Came across some scat, and I said, my God, it's still steaming in the snow. And I said, what is that, a coyote? He said, no, that looks like cat. I said, cat? He said, yeah, cougar. And we were in a ravine, and my first instinct was to grab my camera like a gun and point it up at the edge of the ravine, where it would have done nothing except take a picture of whatever was going to jump on me, So that's when I resolved the next time I went out with my camera, I would also have a sidearm at the minimum, and then that's how I got into hunting. Just figured, survival.
Okay.
I was not to get them. I just didn't want them to get me.
There you go. Okay. All right. That's fair. So Gib, so you credit a lot with Gib with, wow, I've never heard her bark.
Yeah, he is on his 70th birthday cruise down to the Caribbean. So he just left. Yeah, March 14th he'll have his 70th birthday.
Gib's gonna be 70. Oh gosh.
Yeah,
wow.
he's about 9 to 10 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's cool.
So he always, that gives him pleasure to know that I'm the old fart.
Yeah. Adam does the same thing. He's like, yeah, Stutzy, as long as I'm alive, he's like, you'll always be older than me.
Yeah.
Well, for those who did hear, that was our dog, and like I said, we brought our dog on our trip, but she does not bark. I literally have never heard her bark until just now. And I mean that in 3.5, almost 4 years that I've been dating Gisela, I've never heard her full-on bark.
There was something in the tree that bugged her, yeah.
There's something in that tree that was bugging her. So
it's
we
our
took
orange
her
tree.
inside. Yeah.
Because we have had a roadrunner coming around here now that has taken a liking to our backyard. Ross spotted it. Yeah, and kind of strange because I ended up taking a picture of a roadrunner in the snow up in Pine Top, and I've never seen roadrunners in snow country, high altitude snow country. But that's where they were.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't think they'd like that up there, to be honest.
No, they're survivors, though. They're the present day versions of Jurassic Park raptors.
Yeah, they kind of look like that.
Yeah,
actually,
they kind of move and look that way, and they're intelligent too. They know how to survive.
Yeah, like you said, meep meep.
Yeah,
those are classics.
Yeah.
So being a dad and obviously having raised your kids, all of us are grown up. Like, what do you think? Was there like a conscious effort to say, hey, I want to get my family outdoors, or I want to teach them this, or anything of that going on? Tell me about that.
Well, I have to make a concession. Of our 5 kids, the one that was really home and doing most of the teaching and doing most of the errand running and doing most of the logistics of getting kids to different games and whatnot was your mom, Bridget. And I was away trying to make a living, and at various things, going to school, trying to get smarter, get some degrees, and go into the field that I thought I was going to do. And then politics came along, and we won't mention who or what politics back in 1980, but you can figure that out. There was a freeze on federal hiring. The administration on aging was dying. The future that I saw in public service and working with older citizens, of whom I am now one, diminished, and job markets shrunk as there was a different kind of an economy set going on, and I became a car salesman. I became exactly what my dad never wanted me to be, because everything that anybody ever said about car salesmen was that they were terrible, crooked people, and that they're next to politicians, they were the lowest of human life. And so that's what I gravitated to, because those were the only people that were hiring, and I had 4 kids, and yes, number 5 on the way. I took a job at Royal Buick in July, officially July 1, and they gave me my first weekend off that weekend, and July 4th we went camping up at Mount Graham.
Okay.
And your mom...
Is that Riggs Flat Lake, right?
Yeah. Your mom, heavy with child, was up there, and you guys were fishing, and you caught the first...
I caught my first
trout.
fish.
That's right.
That was the first fish I ever caught.
Yeah, and then I went to work for 26 years with one dealership, which is kind of unheard of, and happy I am that I did. And camping was a part of our life in those days. We just, that's what we did. And later on in life, we got a used motorhome, and we used to go around and go fishing up in the White Mountains a little bit, but basically, Roosevelt Lake, then we used to go right down here to South Patagonia Lake, and before it dried up, we used to go to Pena Blanca. And
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, the fishing here is not the fishing. It's just being out. It's just being outside and sitting and watching your bobber float.
Yeah.
But it just there's something about it, you know, or
Yeah.
hiking, or looking, you know, seeing critters running around and wondering what this or that was, or getting a textbook and researching it, or, you know, seeing the wonder of life and the uncomplicated order of life.
I agree.
Yeah, it's we're so-called civilized, an urban setting and all this kind of stuff, but you go out in the wilderness and there is a balance, there's an order, there is a relationship between species. I remember the first time I was in Yellowstone. It was in the wintertime, and we had a day worth of photography, and we were heading back, and the light was already fading, and there was a whole bunch of people collected just beyond the bridge along the Madison River. And they were watching, and we were looking, what were they watching? They all had their tripods set up. You know, it's one of these things, nature photographers take nature, but there's about 20 of them that have lined up to take this one critter that's sitting over on the other side of the river.
Okay.
And so we kind of lined up with them, and then as we came, others left because they were bored watching this wildcat, or excuse me, bobcat, which was a wildcat, just hunkering down along the river on some stumps and a fallen tree. And what in the world is it doing? Well, we hung around, and zeroed in on it and waited, and pretty soon there weren't very many photographers left but us, and the light was fading fast, and one guy who had smarts switched to video. The rest of us didn't. We were trying to use automatic ISO. And all of a sudden that cat tensed up. It crawled along the edge of the tree and got as flat as it could, moved very quickly, stopped, moved and stopped. What in the world was it? You know, we couldn't say anything, and we were beginning to whisper, even though it was about 40 feet across the river with our telephoto lenses. And all of a sudden that cat jumped right into the ice-cold waters of the Madison River, come up, pulling this muskrat about 1/5 its own size and weight, hauling it onto the edge of the tree that's laying there, grabbing from the back of the neck, twisting around and quickly grabbing the throat and suffocating it right in front of us, and we saw it throbbing. The only reason we know all this because it was happening, we were clicking and clicking and clicking, but the guy that had the presence of mind to go to video got an incredible video of it that we all witnessed that night.
Wow.
And those of us that were nature photographers and being out in nature, there was a sadness for a moment. And yet, the muskrat had to die, but the bobcat had to live. And it hauled that muskrat off, man, it was sure it was dead, dropped it off. Then only then did the cat shake off, like any cat would. And you kind of, a smile came to your face because you knew there was going to be dinner in the den tonight. And the cat had done a magnificent thing. It had done its job. It had provided for its family and itself. And yes, the muskrat had to go. And the sadness all of a sudden was gone because there was a sense of, yeah, this is the balance of things. This is what has to happen.
Yeah, that's funny. There, you hit it on the head. It's like there's the order out there. There's order when you're sitting around a fire, or just the simplicity of it. You know that's just the way things go. Maybe that's why we're so compelled to watch it or be in it, because it is so connected to the way we were for thousands of years. You know, it's like we're returning home. You know, it's like.
Can I remind you of something for a change?
Yeah.
Can I turn the table on you?
Do it.
A long time ago, you were going to Bloom School, and I'm going to be doing some hummingbird stories for 4th and 5th graders there, and some shows for them. I've arranged to do that now that I've got free time. And I've been back there, and it reminded me of the situation. You had to write poetry back then, didn't you? You had an assignment to write some poetry?
I don't remember.
And you wrote about the Arctic, Antarctic, and penguins and animals and...
Oh man. It rings a bell, but I don't remember.
Well, you came home with your poem, or you came home with the assignment, and I think it was you and...
Oh yeah, it's where I said Arctic, and it should have been Arctic.
Ah, you do remember, yeah.
Yeah,
you said the penguins were in the Arctic, and the Arctic rhymed perfectly. The cadence, everything was perfect. Everything would just fit right. It was a really neat poem. And then your father, me, looked at it and in a moment of stupidity said, but they don't live in the Arctic. they live in the Antarctic.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is an extra syllable, which
That's right.
completely blew the poem, right? Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. It was the Antarctic.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because
you're like, yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and then you got rather pissed off, and you had right to be, and I was backing and backpedaling as fast as I could, and I said, well, artistic license, and none of that made any sense to you, at that point in time. Well, did you ever have to write a poem? Well, yeah. You got a poem that I can look at? No, well, I don't know. I'm not right. I kind of put them away, and I don't know where they are, or if I even got them anymore. And well, then why don't you write a poem about something and let me look at it? And you remember what I did that night?
That was, I think that's when you wrote The Order of the Otter.
The
right?
Order of the Otter, yeah. And someday we'll have to talk about that, or maybe
Do you have
someday.
that with you? Where is that? Is that in here? It's got to be in here somewhere.
It is.
Break that out.
Okay, now you're going to have to reach for my other glasses, or you're going to have to read The Order of the Otter in here somewhere.
Here. Well, the good news is
my glasses are here.
Your glasses are here, and we can leave this rolling because this is good.
Okay.
All right, so we are looking in this cabinet here. My dad's. If you do have this, is there actually one that's labeled projects?
No, it's on the poetry or Order of the Otter.
Let's see here. All right. Other submissions: Garden Railroad, Opa's Garden Plan, poetry.
There you go.
All right, we're getting there.
There it
is. All right, so you should put, or you should.
You want me to read that for you?
Yeah, I totally want you to read it. But set what's the date on this?
This was January 23rd of 1987. I wrote it in the wee hours of the morning. I wrote it on a yellow line pad, blue lining on a yellow pad. And there were not very many corrections. It flowed because I was so damn guilty.
Yeah. And what made you pick the otter?
Well, the otter is a creature that I like. I love. Because they have more fun in life. And I'm going to shut up and just read you the poem because I was completely brief and to the point, more so than ever, and when I wrote this. And yes, you're going to have to give me the glasses back so I can read it.
Yes, glasses. All right.
Okay. The Order of the Otter. The Order of the Otter. Is that what I heard you say? Well, there simply isn't any unless that word is play. Oh, of course, they feed and breed and sleep. For all creatures, that's a must, but order in an otter? That's one gigantic bust. You envy them. They're fun to watch. The helter-skelter walks, the teasing, playing, nipping jigs, the muffled nasal squawks. You tolerate the pungent musk rising from their oily fur. It helps them swoop and glide in ponds like birds do in the air. I grant you, they are different, the clowns of weaseldom. Unlike their sneaky cousins, nerve-wracked till evil's done. In wild or zoo, they have a zest that none can hold at bay. It cries out freedom, love of life, and time to fill each day. The Order of the Otter is a phrase of my insistence. The fact is, every otter finds great joy in pure existence. No vast, deep plan, no marvelous goal, no pause or hesitation. Just headlong life, fulfilled alone as part of God's creation. What can this tell me? Is there an epilogue? Where in this scheme do I fit in? Am I pressing, pausing, pushed? Do I regret and wish I could, bogged down by all I think I should, and yet I am the way God made me, searching, striving to be better. I'll find in life the mix that's mine, my Order of the Otter.
It's good. Yeah. Except this fucking cooler kicked in again.
Well,
Did
it's
you notice
real.
it?
It's real. No, I didn't even notice it. You tapped me on the arm, but I was on a roll. I was
good,
stop.
I like the way you read it too. Yeah. So that whole thing was inspired by me giving you a hard time about
felt so guilty.
Really?
Really?
I didn't remember that.
That crazy. Was the night of, and on somewhere. You just found it? Okay. I'm gonna. Was it in here?
It was in the poetry one. There's actually a separate one you have for poetry. Poetry by PHS,
Yeah,
all this stuff?
Yeah.
You still have the original. Get the fuck out of here. Wow. That's crazy.
That's how it flowed.
Wow. It just, yeah. So the date here is different, but that's probably when you finished it.
4/11.
86.
86.
12:04 a.m. Wow. You put the time.
That should be changed then. This is the accurate. This is the accurate.
That's it. That's probably when because you probably made some changes to it. You got it.
This is yeah.
That's amazing.
And you know the Sonora Desert Museum used this. I gave them permission to use this poem as part of a fundraiser for their pond.
Yeah.
There's many iterations of it. I've redone it a couple times.
Just visually.
Yeah.
Made it look a little different.
Yeah. But the last one was with the stamps on it.
That's cool.
But I'm glad you found out that I was in error about the date, because that date is when I wrote it.
Oh wait, that's the poem right there.
Right.
Holy shit. This is this is my poem.
Is
oh
it?
my god, yes. That's crazy.
You should take that with you too.
The penguins belong to the Arctic. They jump, swim, and play. They waddle and eat krill 24 hours a day. They make beautiful sounds and slide down snowy mounds. That's hilarious.
That's yours.
That's hilarious. I think I did not do the calligraphy on that.
Yeah.
The teacher did that.
The penguins.
But that's where that's the part where you said it should have been Antarctic.
Yeah, I'm just being factual, actual, the moment I said it,
wow.
I didn't even realize
that's
I still had you.
Dad. I can't believe you saved that.
Yeah. You should make copies of all this.
Yeah, actually, I love that.
And you should take the original of yours.
Yeah, I will.
And leave a copy for me.
That's
I'll be
cool.
damned.
That is cool.
I found something out here.
That's a great story, man. So, if that didn't make sense to everybody, I was giving my dad a hard time about trying to edit my poetry, and then.
No, you were proud of your poetry. You were sharing it,
oh.
And I didn't realize it was in calligraphy.
Oh yeah.
And you imagine, this is magnificent. The teacher, because he thought your poem was so worthy among the. I didn't think he did this for everyone in class. He probably did this for a few. Gives you this, you take it home, and your old man criticizes you about Arctic versus Antarctic.
That's awesome. Gotcha. And so I gave you a hard time. You felt bad.
I felt really bad.
Yeah.
And then I wrote a poem because I couldn't find any of my poetry.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't lie. It's all there.
I know.
And this is one of the rare occasions where it's all there.
What do they say? This is provenance. It's cool.
Yeah, it's serendipity cool. Is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it all comes together.
Amen. Well, thanks for taking the time to sit down.
Yeah, it's all right. I had no idea what you were going to talk about, and you ended up camping and shit. I didn't realize we did that much camping, but apparently it had an influence on you, you know. And then we talked about the order of nature, and that clicked the order of the otter, and then the rest is this what might be a worthwhile podcast for you.
Yeah, I think so. The only thing I'll ask, if you any advice you got for me, knowing that I'm going to be a dad here in the near future?
Be firm, but don't be stern. Let them feel the love that comes through whatever you're saying to them. And when you sense that they need a hug, or you think you do, they do. And don't be afraid to hug and kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And your son is going to be a man. And I remember the first time I kissed you once as a child, and you kissed me on the lips, and I was taken aback. And I now kiss all my sons on the lips.
Yeah.
Not the cheeks.
Yeah.
Or I kiss them on both, but I don't have any
compunction
about the difference.
It's funny, because for some people that's weird.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know.
And I love you, son.
I love you too.
You know that.
Good hugs. I love you. Thanks for being my dad.
You bet.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to let your kids see you cry.
Amen. I love you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'm glad you're taping me, because at the rate I'm writing my story, you're never going to hear it.
Well, it's something to be said. It's funny because it's like we put all this thought into like capturing moments or having it live when we're around each other all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes putting our guard down is hard, but at the same time, it's like capturing moments like this. Like I've never interviewed you in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there's always that hesitation we have about, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? But you're never at fault when you're real and you're just putting yourself out there. You know what I mean? So.
Well, it kind of had to be, because I had no idea what you were going to say, and then just one thing led to another, and the noises everywhere else made us come here, and we had our own set of noises right in here that I'm not even aware of, because I'm in this room so often, it's so natural to me.
True.
But that would affect the recording part of it. But that notwithstanding, heart and feeling came through.
Amen. Well, you get the last word, Dad.
God bless you all. God bless this planet, this nature, this country on this planet. And let's do all we can to preserve it.
Campfire Wisdom is brought to you from the hills of Rancho Cucamonga. We'd like to thank the men and women that protect our national parks and forests. You make this journey possible. Theme music by Sean Cromwell.